It's crazy how it can all be here in these simple 2D shapes. How can they replicate these poses so well? If you can practice seeing these ideas from the 2D model in these poses, you're going to start seeing 80% of the things you need to see for figure drawing. So let's start at the heart of the whole thing. We've got this kind of egg-shaped ribcage shape, this underpants-looking pelvis shape, and between the two, the midsection shape. And as the torso bends to one side, it's the midsection shape that's going to squash down on one side and stretch out on the other side. And even as the ribcage shape and pelvis shape, even as their angles change, the actual shapes aren't going to change that much. It's the midsection which has to change. Now, often when the torso is bending to one side and people are drawing it, they won't squash down that gap between the ribcage and pelvis shape on the squash side. They'll leave it too big, and that results in an overall long-looking torso, because actually the ribcage and pelvis shape can get closer than you might think. Now, the red marks on the midsection shape there, they're going to show us how much we can push that squash side, because they can get really close, but they're not going to touch each other, right? So hopefully you've never bent to one side and felt your rib cage scrape up against your pelvis. That would be terrible.
The side where the rib cage and pelvis get closer together is the squash side. The side where they got further apart is the stretch side. So you'll need that idea for gesture drawing later on.
So what's happening with these three cut out shapes is something that we need to see intuitively, something we need to see instantly when we see a pose.
You might look at these three torsos and feel like they're very similar. They're all just bending to one side, but they're fundamentally different torso poses. So in Christie's pose, the pelvis is staying pretty horizontal, the rib cage is on a strong angle, and it's quite strongly squashing the midsection here and stretching it out here. If you're not sure how to see that rib cage angle, you can look for the line in the middle of the chest, the sternum, hold up your pencil to it and see the angle that way. In Ellie's pose, the pelvis is on an angle opposite to the rib cage. So the midsection has to start off going this way and then sharply bend back for the rib cage angle. So the rib cage ends up leaning at a less strong angle compared to the first pose we looked at, but the pelvis is angled the other way, so the overall squash and stretch is just as strong. In Pris's pose, the lean of the rib cage is really strong again, almost 45 degrees. And there's a bit of a squash here versus the stretch here, but it's not as strong, even though the rib cage is leaning strongly. So why is that? It's because now the pelvis is also leaning in that same direction as the rib cage. So there is still a squash side and a stretch side, because the pelvis isn't on quite as strong an angle as the rib cage. But it's not a really strong squash or a really strong stretch. Rather than the rib cage angling one way and the pelvis angling a completely different way, it's more like the whole torso is angled this way now. Did you ever feel like 60-second quick sketches of a figure are just impossible? There's a million things happening, but there's just 3 things happening here, and you only need to draw the 3 things. So quick poses become much more doable when you see things this way. And this right here is kind of the heart of the gesture and the structure of the figure.
So we're about to make shoulders simpler than they've ever been. I just want to explain this 10-day challenge. This is the Fresh Eyes Figure Drawing Challenge. And across the 10 days, you can practice learning principles about figure drawing that are really fundamental, that are going to be transformative for how you see the figure. This is the first tutorial that's part of that. And each day there's going to be references to practice with. There's going to be these 2D simple models that you can actually play around with and try and match the poses that you're looking at with it to help your understanding. There'll be some live sessions, and there's also going to be a community area where you can share drawings or ask questions. To join in, you just go to the link below. It's free and it's open to everyone. So check out the information and the link below.
By the way, to access our amazing new free reference library for all your figure drawing practice, it's the same link.
So we absolutely have to forget this notion that the shoulders are stuck onto the sides of the torso like this mannequin. This mannequin is dead wrong. And I know that I'm mean to you, but it's because you are awful. So we're going to throw this away I didn't hit my computer. It's okay, I meant to do that.
Okay, so the rib cage is a sort of egg shape, but we don't look like walking eggs. Our torsos actually get wider coming up from the waist. They don't curve back in like an egg. All of that extra mass, all that extra structure is about the shoulders and the arms.
So there's this really large structure around the upper torso, which is basically all about the shoulders, and it can move independently of the rib cage. My rib cage isn't moving right now. So we have these huge ideas of the rib cage and then a huge idea of the shoulders, and we have to think of them as quite independent and separate ideas.
So the shoulders are complex. There are so many muscles going through them and through that area. There's the pecs and the lats and the teres major and all the rotator cuff muscles and the deltoids, and even parts of the upper arm muscles like biceps are traveling through or around this area. But fortunately, to see what's going on from the front, we don't actually need to worry about all of that. From the front, we're going to simplify this whole structure down to 2 straight lines, a line for each collarbone.
So at the base of the neck, right in the middle, at the top of the rib cage, on the middle of the front edge, we have the middle of the collarbones, and the inner end of these straight lines I'm talking about are going to start here, but they can pivot from here. So there's these straight lines, they pivot from here, they can actually go forwards and backwards, but we're really going to focus on the up and down.
The lines are going to go to different places. The collarbone could be pivoted up high or low, even as the rib cage stays in the same place. The muscles that start from the rib cage and go to the arm, like the pecs, they're going to have to stretch or squash to get to wherever the shoulder has pivoted to. So here it's pivoted up here, so the muscles are stretching up towards that area. And when you see it like this, what's happening becomes a lot clearer because of those simple straight lines. The arms are going to start from wherever those straight lines went off to, so they tell us so much. So the real pelvis is a really complicated shape, and actually so are the collarbones and all the other shapes I'm talking about here. But this underpants shape is going to give us what we need for the torso and also to attach the legs. So you can see here that I can rotate the thigh pretty much the same as they are on the real models.
So notice how different that is again to this poor mannequin that I keep being mean to. So the mannequin has this kind of pelvis structure. It's got this torso with a pelvis structure, and then it's got the legs stuck on the bottom. And I think a lot of us subconsciously think of the legs that way, as stuck to the bottom of the torso. But that is, again, dead wrong. So I'm going to throw you away again, but more carefully this time.
But in our version, the thigh comes up really high relative to the pelvis. So here's the top of the pelvis, and the thigh starts just underneath that.
So you can try this on yourself. So if you find that bony bit of your pelvis, the ASIS, which is, let's say you got the waistband of some trousers or underpants, just on the front, on the side of your torso, you should find a bony bit of your pelvis, right? You feel that here, and then you can raise your thigh. And you can think, where's the top of this thigh? It's coming to a point just underneath that bony bit of the pelvis. So that bony bit at the top of the pelvis, and then the thigh starts, the top of the thigh is just a little bit down from there. So the neck is really built around the spine. We kind of think of spines as part of our back. It runs straight through the heart of the neck into the base of the skull. And if you're drawing the figure from the side or the back, I think it's super useful to visualize that curvature of the spine. For now though, from the front, I think that's a little bit difficult to visualize, but it's okay, because instead, from this special point we have from the middle of the collarbones, we're going to look for the sternocleidomastoid muscle, this V-shaped muscle that goes from here to just behind the ears. So it means we're actually going to have 4 lines coming from this point that explain the shoulders and the neck. The 2 straight lines for the collarbones, 2 straight lines for these neck muscles.
So on our ribcage egg, the middle of the collarbones is a point in the middle near the top, and these muscles of the neck are going to come from there as well and go to the sides of the cranium ball of the head. So there's going to end up being 4 straight lines from that spot, and they're going to explain the shoulders and the neck.
So the head's got a lot going on. It's got the face and all kinds of stuff. But the heart of the volume of it, as Loomis taught us, there's the cranium ball shape. Now, some people keep their brains in there. I use it as a pencil case because I find that to be a lot more useful. But whatever you use, stupid. Whatever you use it for, that ball shape is really useful because no matter what the angle of the head, a ball generally looks roughly the same. So you can almost always find that ball shape in the head.
So it's really useful to see that ball in the head and then those neck muscles coming up on each side of that ball. So obviously there's more to the head than just the cranium ball. You know, there's the whole jaw and the face. All of that stuff runs from the ball towards the chin. We can think of the chin also a bit like a ball. So we put a little ball here for the chin, and then with the cranium ball and the ball for the chin, we have everything we need to know about the head. So the arms in this 2D model are dead simple. They taper down. That's a really important characteristic of the arms. So there's more to them, but this is enough for now. The main thing is we're going to start these arm shapes from wherever those collarbone lines went to. And we're going to have the collarbone lines come to somewhere in that little red shape on the top of this simple arm shape. The hands, they're just really placeholder shapes. The shins are outward curving lines because that's probably the most important thing to notice about the shins. The feet are sort of triangular placeholder shapes too. So notice how these incredibly simple cutout shapes can be rearranged to capture all these poses fully. So it's not like a really kind of crude and rough version of the pose. It really captures the actual pose. So these simple shapes, they're not anatomically perfect or complete, but their characteristics give us everything we need. So if we can train ourselves to see these ideas, we can draw these poses. I'm not suggesting that you end up drawing figures with these exact shapes. I'm saying let's train ourselves to see these ideas in this challenge, and then you can draw figures really effectively. So now when you see this pose, you could think, okay, so there's the outline, it goes like this, and then it goes around like that, and you could follow the contours. Or you could just see the ribcage egg, the pelvis pants, the midsection squash, the midsection stretch, collarbone straight line 1, collarbone straight line 2, and so on. And you can see that so quickly and instantly and draw that within seconds with confidence and clarity.
If you're not sure how to see the angles of these forms or how to see them in the figure, don't worry. There's an extra mini tutorial about all of that when you log into the challenge.
So these poses are specifically designed. They are flat. The ribcage and pelvis are facing us directly, and everything is moving in that one plane. The legs and arms are not really coming towards us. We're limiting ourselves to these flat poses right now, and we can use this 2D understanding of the figure. And on days 4 and 5, we're going to learn to see the figure with this same simplicity, but from the side, learning about the dimension that we're missing here. So then it's going to be all about looking for the tilt of the ribcage forward or back relative to the tilt of the pelvis forward or back. And again, that's going to create a squash side and a stretch side, but on the front or the back now. And these ideas are just as important as the ones we looked at in this video. Now, I couldn't fit all of that into this tutorial, but it's all going to be explained as part of the challenge. So make sure you sign up below. It's all free. And then we're going to start to draw with more form and dimension from days 6 to 10. Because once you can see these ideas in these flat 2D planes, they're going to be much easier to understand in 3D. So days 6 to 10, we're going to start to draw more three-dimensionally.
So to really get good at these ideas, it's going to take some practice and some repetition. We have specially designed poses for you to practice these ideas with. We have the 2D models for you to play around with. And we have daily exercises to practice this stuff, including for the side view. And so that's what we're going to be doing in this challenge for days 1 to 5. Then on day 6, there'll be a new tutorial, and days 6 to 10 will be focused on more three-dimensional drawing. So days 1 to 5, we're thinking in 2D. Days 6 to 10, we're thinking more 3D. To do the challenge, to join in with the community area and any extra live sessions you want to join, and the daily exercises, check out the link below. It's free to everyone. It's going to be a ton of fun, and I really hope to see you there. Okay, bye.